Welcome back to eVision, Accelerating Fleet Electrification in Europe. My name is Ioannis Vlachos and I am an energy markets expert with EnergyWeb. Before jumping into our panel discussion today, I would like to mention that the survey is available on the website, so all attendants are kindly requested to participate in this. Finally, a report focusing on fleet electrification is available for downloading on the eVision webpage. So this session will look at the details for creating a profitable and successful business model for EV charging. Today on the panel, we have some great speakers. We have Eric Mavelek, CEO of Driv, Thierry Lassus, Transportation Segment Leader from Hitachi ABB Power Grids, Fiona Haworth, CEO of Octopus Electric Vehicles, Andrew Daga, President and CEO of Momentum Dynamics, and last but not least, Charles Levine, Chief Marketing and Sales from Electric. So, without further ado, my first question is to Driv CEO, Eric Mavelek. So, Eric, what are your views on V2G from an energy perspective in the context of fleet electrification?
Thank you for having me with you today. So I'm Eric Mavelek, I'm the CEO of Driv. Driv is a joint venture between EDF and UV. And this is maybe my first comment, is that it's moving very fast. This fleet electrification is going very fast, and the technology has to adapt. And we are convinced that we need to partner and to make partnership in order to look at the whole value chain. And this is basically why we did choose to have a joint venture to accelerate a little bit, to be soon on the market. And this is also why we are putting much energy on partnership, because we believe no one can compete alone, and it's going to be what we call a cooperative technology. I really believe that there are several roles to play, and we need to organize that. So that being said, we believe that from a utility point of view, with the appropriate technologies, EV shall not be considered as a threat at all for the electrical system, but as a unique opportunity. So first thing is that with quite simple but still smart services, such as innovative tariff, for example, we can really well manage peak demand and ensure a proper integration of the EVs and the electrical system. This kind of approach, tariff-based approach, has already been proven, especially if you look in France with the hot boiler. We have a bit more than 11 million water boiler, and it's a first smart but simple solution. And once you have that, when you are managing, I would say, a large part of the volume of the EVs with that, of course, you can go much further with especially V1G and V2G, vehicle-to-grid technologies, and this is what we are trying to do. We call that optimization technology, because really what we are doing from our utility point of view is to optimize the overall system. So let me just explain that with three different, I would say, point of view. The first one is from the electrical system itself. Of course, the more renewables will be deployed, the more we'll be interested in managing flexibilities, and EVs are really perfect for that, of course. And we have proven that after a couple of trials in 2019, that a well-designed solution, a B2G solution, can really be deployed at a large scale and really bring services to the grid, including fast response services that are really valuable for the electrical system. The second angle that is important for me, of course, is CO2 optimization, because once this technology is deployed, CO2 can really be a first order parameter in the equation. The decision to charge or discharge partially an EV is subject to many parameters, such as the EV itself, the state of charge, the driver mobility needs, the cost of energy, the stress on the network, and of course, the CO2. And of course, CO2 is already a major parameter, but my deep conviction is that it shall become a more and more important in the overall equation in the next years. And of course, obviously, we believe this technology can be sources of value for the customer themselves, because we shall never forget that the customer purchase EVs to drive and to and if we can use these EVs and this battery in a smart way, we shall not forget to reward the customer for that. So this is I think a part of the beauty of our model is that we are talking about quite advanced and complicated technology, but we can make this technology fully transparent for the customer in the day-to-day operation. And in fact, it's not that complicated to match customer mobility needs when you realize that an EV is parked, is static more than 90% of the time. Then we can use it in a smart way and still give it back to the customer to do what it was purchased for, that is to drive it. So yeah, this is basically the main focus and the main value we have from our point of view. The first one is electrical system, a value of optimization, a CO2, and I would say an energy transition value, and of course a value for the customer itself.
Thanks, Eric. So my next question goes out to Thierry Lassus, transportation segment leader at Hitachi ABB Power Grids. So my question to you, Eric, is what do you believe will be the role of the actual physical infrastructure to achieve EV flexibility in fleet electrification?
Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to be with you today. Indeed, in Hitachi ABB Power Grids, we are coming from the utility sector, and obviously we have also focused on the industry and the transportation sector. We have a long history in the rail, and now we are focusing for a couple of years on the land transport, which includes EV, electric buses, electric truck, and off-road vehicle. And as a majority of us know, this journey has started a couple of years ago with some trials. And what we see now is it is indeed accelerating. So we are concerned to look into the grid and obviously the impact on the grid, having these hundreds of thousands of vehicles. And obviously, since the power demand for this vehicle is also increasing, if you sum up the number of vehicles and the capacity of each vehicle, you will end up with a couple of megawatts of vehicle being recharged at the same time. So obviously, from the grid, this is something that we need to monitor. And to make this transition as a success, I think we need to look at the EV penetration not as just a charger being parachuted in the middle of the city or in the countryside, but to look at the hubs which are being currently created around the world, to look at also the depot demand for trucks and large fleets like electric bus, and to deal and to look at the solution from the grid to the plug, to really ensure that we have an efficient solution which is working well, which is also combining the renewable, because we don't want only to have let's say nuclear power plant and coal-fired power plant to supply the electricity to the vehicle, but we need to integrate more and more the renewable. So it is not just about the charger, it is a overall solution that we need to watch out, because we are entering into a different scale of a number of vehicles, and obviously we don't want to fail in this market. We don't want to have unhappy customers who are basically not able to recharge 10 or 15 different electric vehicles at the same time. So we are coming with some solutions which are rather, let's say, new generation of solutions, and especially in our portfolio called Grid Emotion. We want to centralize all the intelligence into a container, and we want to dispatch the energy and to plug the different vehicle in a kind of an octopus way. So centralize, and then you have the arm, and then you can dispatch the electricity to the different vehicles. The beauty of that solution is easy and cost competitive in terms of implementation. And obviously, we have looked into the last couple of years, especially on the sector which we call the electric bus or the bus transit operator. And we have seen the constraint, the space constraint, but also the need of being educated around the electricity. So our customer, they are willing to buy a complete solution from the grid to the plug, which address also the space constraint, which addresses also the learning from moving diesel to electric. And we are very attached to provide a comfortable solution to our customer. Saying that, on the charging infrastructure, we have also realized that this is not just about the charger. It is also about the software, how you are going to communicate with the charging infrastructure, communicate with the electric vehicle, like it was said before, managing the battery, the state of the charge of the battery. So you need to have a robust communication system, and obviously you don't want to be attacked by different geeks and so forth. We also want to have a safe system which helps the customer to operate and to control this new vehicle, whether it is a public vehicle or it is a private vehicle. And obviously the IoT is very high on the agenda of our customer. And finally, it was also mentioned the combination of green electricity or blue electricity. So how do you deal with, let's say, the cost of your electricity? How do you manage and ensure that your electricity bill will not go up to the roof? So we have also some solution to integrate this intelligence when the bus or when the truck needs to be recharged, and how much energy I can pull from the renewable, or I can take energy from the classic technologies. And last but not least, and this is really something which I want to underline here, is all the what we call the asset management, because our customer, they're not looking at only the capex, the initial investment for the EV vehicle. They're looking at the overall total cost of ownership. And obviously, you want to be sure that your battery is well managed. You want to be sure that your fleet is well managed. And you want to be sure that your people and the customer organization want to upskill the people in order to ensure that they can easily move into this new journey. From diesel, when basically you are able to replace a gearbox and so forth, to an electronic board, it requires also different skill sets. So it's not just about the electricity and the charger. It is really from the grid to the plug to ensure that you have a safe and well thought through solutions to enable the customer to move to the electric vehicle world. And then it's also how do you ease the customer to make the transition and ensure that at the end of the day, he can operate, control, and maintain the fleet in the most efficient way. So this is what we see. And if we do that well all together, I mean, the acceleration and the penetration of the EV in the market will definitely speed up.
Thanks, Thierry. So my next question goes out to Fiona, the CEO of Octopus Electric Vehicles. So what is your view on tariffs and flexibility, especially when it comes to fleets of electric vehicles? What is your views on that one? Thank you.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. So, as you mentioned, I run Octopus Electric Vehicles, which is a group company of the Octopus Energy Group. And so Octopus Energy, we've built our own CRM and billing platform, which enables us to create more innovative tariffs. So perfect question. So if I start on a home tariff perspective first, actually, because that's most simple, and then we move on to the fleet side in a moment. So from a home tariff perspective, obviously with a smart billing and CRM platform and smart meters, that's really unlocked the ability to now give time of use tariffs. And so we have launched a couple over the last couple of years, one which is a very simple tariff that has 4 hours in the middle of the night at about a third of the price. And then the other one which actually moves with the wholesale market price. So it takes inputs from what the price is doing on the wholesale market, and it's a half-hour by half-hour tariff. The pricing is released the day before, and typically, as you can imagine, it's relatively inexpensive overnight. There's a small peak around about breakfast. It's all right during the day. And then there's a huge peak when everyone gets home from work, or in pre-COVID times, they used to get home from work. And then it's cheap again overnight. And we have made those APIs available, those pricing APIs available, and we have now facilitated that ecosystem so that charging providers can integrate with those pricing APIs and can optimize your charging for you. So one of my favorites is the OMI cable. I love it because it's also retrofittable, so it doesn't matter if you've already got a charge point at home. You can get this cable and it can communicate to the cloud. The cloud is, their platform is asking for our pricing, and it's also talking to your app and saying, okay, how much charge do you want tonight? And you might say, well, I want 60 miles or 80 miles, and it works out that, say, about 20 kilowatt hours. That's about 3 hours worth of charging on a standard home charger, and the cheapest tonight might be between 11 and 12 and 2 and 4 in the morning, and it just makes it charge at those times. Tomorrow it might be between 1:30 and 4:30, and it makes it happen then. So you don't have to worry about getting out of bed to think about it or look at your pricing each day. It just optimizes it depending on what is going on in the energy system. And per your previous speakers with Eric and Thierry, having a smart energy system enables us to save huge amounts of money and creates value for the customers. So actually, in the UK, at sometimes we almost pay wind turbines to turn off where we've got a surplus of energy coming onto the grid and not enough demand. So during some of the bank holiday weekends back in May, we had such a surplus that wholesale market price was going negative. So our tariff went negative. And we had some of our customers fill up enough electricity to drive them, 400 miles, and they got paid £5 to do it, which is pretty exciting over that weekend. It's like turning up to fill up your car with petrol, being told it's free, and here's your coffee and donut to go with you. So that's been quite good. So we've extended that now out to charge point operators and to fleet managers as well, because all of the fleets might have different patterns, and depending on when you want to charge up, you want to access the best value electricity. So we created the electric juice tariff, and actually there's 4 different flavors, should I say, of this electric juice tariff, depending on when you need to charge up your vehicles. And then we've also worked with charging operators. Again, actually, OMI have taken this to the next step where fleets have different needs. So, for example, those fleets might be charging at depots, but they also might have individuals that are taking their vehicles home overnight to charge at home, and they need to work out how to manage the expenses and how much is being charged at home. So actually, they've taken it to the stage of creating a dashboard, a fleet dashboard, to manage those vehicles, where they're being charged, collate it all and present it back, and integrate it, in fact, with other fleet systems so that people can have consolidated views. And so we're working not just with OMI, but others as well to kind of facilitate this ecosystem. So I think, again, your previous speakers mentioned how this is really about partnerships and coming together. This is not just about us doing it alone. This requires the energy suppliers, the charging operators, the car manufacturers to come together to create this optimized system. And of course, the grids, the DNOs in the UK or the national grid as well, and looking at how we can facilitate that. And so taking that further, we're also doing vehicle to grid. So we are rolling out a vehicle to grid proposition. At the minute, we have a very standard tariff. Actually, it's fixed so that we can look at how we can generate those financial values, those generate the financial streams, basically the revenue streams, and how much value. And we're really testing that to work out how we can provide that service back to the customers and how much they want to be optimizing themselves versus we can help them there. So we're very simply, we have a fixed tariff at the minute, and as long as you plug in 12 times overnight and make your vehicle available for vehicle to grid, we give a bonus of £30 UK. And so actually that enables people the freedom to be able to benefit from providing that service back to the grid, but without the worry or stress of how much value that might be driving at this point for them. And we can work that out. And then we'll be releasing another tariff in the next few months, which will enable them to see whether or not they prefer a more flexible tariff where they might opt in and try out different things with optimization themselves. So it's all quite exciting, a lot of different things going on. But yeah, it's great to be in the industry, and we're really enjoying rolling out these various tariffs and charging propositions.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you. So we now have 2 companies that are both doing something truly amazing with the introduction of new technologies in this arena. So let's ask Momentum Dynamics and Electron about their products. So first, let's go to Andrew Daga, the CEO from Momentum Dynamics. So, Andrew, how does your product fit fleet electrification?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you for the invitation to return to Electric. It's been a while since many of us met last in Florence, and I hope soon we'll be able to meet again in person. Our company, Momentum Dynamics, and I am the CEO of Momentum, has been developing inductive high-power charging since 2009. Our focus aligns completely with the Ernst & Young report, which focuses on fleet electrification first, even before we get to passenger vehicles, because we think that that is where the greatest impact will happen, and that is where the economic benefit will be realized first for our investors and also for the environment generally, for all people involved. The special problem of fleets has to be understood to be really rather different than passenger vehicles. Passenger vehicles, one doesn't really have a problem imagining plugging in, if you're plugging in at home, especially if you have a home garage. There are issues with plug-in charging with cars, but when it comes to fleets, it is absolutely essential to understand how each fleet operates differently, how each type of vehicle has a different sort of utilization cycle. And that dictates the charging infrastructure and how the charging infrastructure will perform. So what we have done is a deep analysis, understanding each of the segments, the last mile delivery, the taxis, the buses, and all of the lorries and trucks that have to operate on city streets and on open highways, and how they have to operate without losing money as they transition to full electrification. The handicap that we have faced so far is the lack of a large population to choose from of electric vehicles for those fleets. Nevertheless, the largest fleet operators, the ones who deliver packages to your door or the ones who deliver packages to the store where you buy goods, are beginning to integrate the first generation of heavy-duty electric vehicles. In the meantime, our company has been electrifying with inductive charging transit buses throughout the United States and soon in Europe. And we've been doing this for more than 4 years very successfully, with more than 99% uptime guaranteed. So what we do in the special instance of buses, for example, is understand that the need there is that a transit bus, which has to operate anywhere from 14 to 20 hours per day without interruption, has to be able to do that on pure electric power and nothing but electric power. And no electric bus manufacturer today can do that on one charge. Therefore, you have to charge the bus along its route incrementally many times during the day. And that's where automatic inductive charging becomes critical. You also have the alternative of pantographs, which are overhead chargers, but those chargers are very expensive, they're expensive to maintain, and they have very great limitations in terms of the street space and the visual impact that they have on our cities. Inductive charging goes in the street, it's unaffected by water, ice, and snow, and it can keep a bus in operation 24 hours a day without range limitations. A different kind of problem happens with the last mile delivery vehicle, for example, which is a hub and spoke model. And in that model, what matters to the operator is reliability and operational risk reduction. They must have a vehicle that will always be fully electrically fueled. They do not want to hire additional workers just to plug the vehicles in. They cannot tolerate cables on the floor or mixing in with their moving conveyor belts, and they need an automated system of charging. And then a third example would be taxis, which are mentioned in the report, and I think are somewhat neglected a little bit. Electric taxis are being mandated into existence across Europe, and nowhere more so than in Norway right now. So we have electric taxis operating in Norway, and very soon they will be inductively charged, but they will do it while they're waiting in the rank line. So we don't make them take time off to detour or to plug in or wait in line behind a fast DC charger behind two other taxis who are also waiting. We cannot do that to these commercial fleets. We must fit into their normal method of operation. And if we can do that, we can accelerate the adoption of commercial fleets. And inductive automatic charging at high power levels is the key to doing that. So that is what we do. We're very, very big in our interest in moving to Europe. We're opening our offices there soon. And we have projects going on in both Norway, Sweden, and also soon in the UK, which will involve every type of commercial fleet vehicle.
Thank you, Andrew. So a similar question goes out to Charlie Levine, the Chief Marketing and Sales from Electron. So Charlie, how can your solution also be integrated with fleets of electric vehicles?
Great. Thank you, Ioannis, and thank you very much for the invitation to participate in today's session. So let me talk to you a little bit about our core and first product, which is dynamic wireless charging. This enables us to electrify road sections and to offer charging on the go as a service for fleets. And with this technology, we're hoping to solve some of the biggest challenges in scaling up fleet electrification. Last year, in 2020, we deployed 2.5 kilometers or 4 miles of electric roads. And this year, we're adding many more kilometers. In our pilot in Gotland in Sweden, we're charging a 40-ton electric truck and an electric bus simultaneously. And in our Tel Aviv pilot, we're charging a shuttle bus service. In both of these pilots, we're demonstrating how we can reduce these large vehicle battery capacities and subsequently their costs by up to 90%. At fleet scales, this is huge. We're showing that we can massively reduce the total cost of ownership, as well as the resource requirements in the shift to electric fleets, which, if we're on today's trajectory with plug-in charging and large batteries that need to stop to be charged, it's just not sustainable. I think that the cost point is really crucial for fleets and for us here at Electrion. We've understood that the cost of our entire system, so it includes the technology that's embedded under the road or under the surface, wherever it may be, and the receiver units for the vehicles, those costs must be lower than traditional static charging solutions and comparable even with diesel at scale in order to be both competitive and compelling, and that's where we're heading. Just some of the other benefits in addition to the cost reduction for our wireless charging. For fleets in particular, we're eliminating range anxiety. Some of our other panelists have touched upon the difference between an individual EV for a private EV for an owner versus a fleet that's usually in constant operation, or at least multiple hours. I think Andrew mentioned 14 on average. So this is huge. We're also removing the headache of complex charging infrastructure and the additional real estate requirements, very similarly to Andrew's momentum there. And what we're doing also is distributing the energy demand throughout the day. Fiona mentioned the peaks that they usually have in the evening hours when everybody comes home, or the buses or the fleets themselves mostly have to rest to charge. So we can also help reduce these costs for fleets as we distribute the demand throughout the day, whether or not it be en route or at the side of the route. Very similarly, again, to Andrew, we have some massive reductions in the visual impacts. There are no cables or wires from our solution. And from our tests that we've conducted in real life and real road conditions, we've seen absolutely no impacts from heavy rain, snow, or ice on the road. Some very interesting photos and films coming back from Gotland and Sweden, and the roads are incredibly icy and incredibly snow-covered, let's say. So that's great. And perhaps I think most importantly, we're creating one shared platform for all electric fleets and EVs. We want to be able to offer one platform, one service for everyone, regardless of the mode of transportation, regardless of whether or not it's a truck, it's a bus, it's a private vehicle, or anything in between, really. We want to make it the most efficient and cost-effective way that we can think of to power fleet electrification at global scales. From our two pilots that I've mentioned, one in Tel Aviv and one in Sweden, and from our other ongoing pilots, we've also learned that we need to provide a holistic charging solution. We need to do something that empowers all different fleets and all different modes. So we've added 2 complementary products to our product range to better empower fleet electrification. So we've added semi-dynamic wireless charging, which could be ideal for slow-moving vehicles such as taxis as they queue for passengers, and ports as the vehicles queue to pick up cargo. And we've also added static wireless charging, which is ideal for parked vehicles, whether or not they be in parking lots, in multi-story car parks, on the road parking, for fleet depots, any type of fleet also, and bus terminals. Often there's a rest period at the driver at the end of his route will take a rest, he or she will take a rest. So that might be an application for them there. And ultimately, what we've learned is that we need to offer an optimal and tailored solution for all electric vehicles, regardless of the mode or the application. So ultimately, it's in the hands of the customer to decide what works for them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So thank you, everyone, for your insights. I think we should now open the discussion with a short debate. So I would like to hear your views. How, let's say, do you think the future will look around this topic in, let's say, 5 years from now? What do you most dearly hope has been achieved by then? Let's start with Eric, yeah. Or anyone else can jump in and share his or her thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, in 5 years, but basically, I think we might have cracked the business model about some new model that we are talking about. I think we discussed about some different but still connected business model. If I come back to the vehicle to grid business model, we are talking about sending a signal from a market, from an energy market, and then we want to see for real the action on the EVs, both for charging the EVs of course, but also discharging the EVs at certain moment, especially when it can be a solution for the whole electrical system. And to perform that, I think there are many solutions, many pilots, and we have seen that it's feasible. We know now that from a technical point of view we can do that, but still the business model and the cooperation to achieve that at a large scale is still key. I think many of us have pointed out the partnership and the need for collaboration, and of course from an economical and business model point of view, but from a technical point of view as well. And I think these are two key points for the future. So in 5 years, I really believe we might have reached large-scale deployment of such solution. But the first point is that we need to agree about sharing the value between the customer and between the different partners, and of course about the standard. I think standardization is a key point for that. Of course, I could speak about ISO and other standards, but I think it is very important because tomorrow we will have some people in charge of the EVs to sell and to make the promotion of the EVs. Some other about the charging station. Sometimes it will be bundled, sometimes not. But at the end, we want some services, some tariffs, some smart services easy to enable for the customer. I could maybe make the link with, if you remember a couple of years ago, the HD Ready for the TV. You purchase a TV and then you can activate or not. It's up to the customer to activate or not the smart services. And I think this is what we could target for 5 years. Basically, I think this is reasonable. To do that, we might expect some large-scale initiative project. I think there are still some points that need to be cracked about, once again, standardization, and maybe some large-scale project might help to overpass that. But yeah, I think that's feasible for 5 years.
Thank you. Yes, sure, Andrew.
On that idea, actually two different ideas. The issue of collaboration, or I would actually think of it as strategic partnering between the various stakeholders. So the fleet opportunity is unique in that those strategic relationships can be very easily built. You have a customer who has a fleet, they have a need. You have a utility company who can be brought in as a partner. You have a provider of charging equipment. The difficulty arises, and this is very different than public charging of passenger vehicles, where every individual car is an individual stakeholder, and the issue of forming partnerships becomes more difficult. But it teaches us lessons to work in the fleet world first, where we can develop real good very solid business models that make money for all of the parties concerned or do not penalize parties concerned. And to go to Thierry's idea, I want to pick up on that a little bit. Building intelligence into the charging system is absolutely critical. And this needs to be viewed as a technological ecosystem of parts. So in the charging system is also the smart meter. It is also the communications channel that allows the utility to communicate not only with the charger, but with the vehicle. And now we begin to do artificial intelligence to understand how the energy demand is going to grow in the next few hours. And we begin to look at energy distribution differently than we do today. And fleets are where that will begin. The problem that we have with fleets is that they want to electrify even faster than as fast as we want them to. They don't have the vehicles yet. Once they get the vehicles, they lack something else. They lack knowledge. They don't know how to electrify their fleet. They don't know what the cost implications are. So what we see evolving now is I'll call it a transportation as a service model, where a fleet comes to a company like Momentum and says, Momentum, solve our problem for us. Go bring the stakeholders together, help us negotiate the rates, put a billing system into place, and help us budget and project what our costs are going to be. And then they make the decision more quickly. And that's what we see happening.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Anyone else that would like to risk predictions for the future?
Yes. What has been said here, and I think there is no question whether this EV revolution will continue or not. It will continue, and how fast it is also depending on the different business model that we can create. Obviously, we see that there are some add-on to the EV that we didn't have with the ICE vehicle so far. And given the fact that we need and we must decarbonize the planet absolutely in the next couple of, let's say, decades, getting the renewable on one hand, having some smart network on the other hand, getting the mobility more and more clean using batteries and so forth. We see this as a holistic view to improve the overall system. But this is just the technology. Now we need to find the right business model to ensure that we are accelerating the penetration of this new technology in the system. And what I want to underline here again, we are talking about a system, a solution. So let's continue to look at the overall efficiency of our system, from the birth of the battery down to the, let's say, recycling of the battery, but also the powertrain, the grid connection, and also the charger, whether it is wireless or hardwired. I mean, at the end of the day, there are so many different needs from customers, depending whether they are operating fleet or electric car, light vehicle, heavy vehicle, off-road vehicles. So we have all the technology available now in the market, but we need to pick the one which is the most efficient and the best for the planet. This is really important, otherwise we are going to fail again into this new revolution.
Thank you, Thierry. Fiona, Charlie, yes.
If I can just underline something, I think I agree with Mr. Lassu. Maybe we have two possible futures in a 5 year or more. The first one is we will have EVs, of course, on the market, and it's already something very good from a CO2 point of view and for the planet. But as far as I understand from what just said, we can go much more further than that. And if we success as an ecosystem to collaborate, to find the proper business model, the good interconnection between the technology, the tariff, and all the hardware, and we can really manage to have even more economical and ecological immobility for the customer, the fleet, and in a general way for the customer. So I think this is a challenge we have in front of us, and collaboration, once again, is very key. We need to success if we want to face this challenge.
Thank you. Fiona, yes?
Yeah, sure. Sure. So, I mean, I think one of the key things we've got to look at as well is how do we really facilitate this smart system? So I think a lot of us have spoken about dynamic pricing, different times of day, optimization, etc. But actually, as there is this now influx of EVs that are coming into the market, people see that uptake, and the grid and the local grids are looking at this uptake of EVs, these cars that are going to be coming home and charging. There's a real incentive, I think, for them in some ways to take control of that and put in place a lot of infrastructure. And there's a risk that actually, unless we set ourselves up well, we'll just end up with lots more infrastructure instead of doing it in a smart way. And actually, instead of kind of having a central facility that's kind of dictating where things go, this is a huge opportunity for us to move into a very much more consumer-driven, market-based system, which incentivizes efficient behavior generally. So actually, when we're looking at all of this, I'd love to see a really smart system in 5 years' time, where the regulators and everyone behind it really embraces that and helps facilitate a system where we can have market dynamics and market signals, so that actually those can flow through to the consumer, to the fleet managers and so forth, so that they really optimize and get value for that at the times when it's great for the system, when there's a lot of renewable energy, when it's off-peak, etc., etc. I think that's really, really critical.
Thank you, Fiona. And Charlie, what are your predictions after looking into the crystal ball of fleet electrification?
I'm not sure if we can call them predictions. I'm going to go out there and use the word hope and anticipation. I think our focus, similarly to some of the other panel members, is the environmental impact. You know, we really hope that we're way on our way to reaching our vision of total fleet electrification, and for the world's entire transport sector to be on its way to being electrified. Without overexploiting the world's resources, utilizing renewables in the energy mix, and reducing overall costs to make a most compelling transition to electric fleets. I hope that collectively, the members of this panel and, of course, the other players in the industry, I hope that we're able to electrify half of the global fleet. I don't mean the entire global fleet. I mean the fleets that need to be electrified. If we're looking at some of the countries and their goals, you know, some of them are stating completely low emission transit sectors by 2030. So let's really hope we're halfway there by 2025. This, of course, depends on openness to innovations from cities, municipalities, public and private fleet operators, and to all of us having great strategic partnerships. But I think ultimately it depends on us, each of the individuals and the companies here. From Electrion's perspective, by the end of this year, we will be ready to deploy at commercial scales across any city for any fleet type. And so we hope that this contributes to the global effort. And in order for us to be able to do even more looking forward, we must have a completely automated process for us to be able to deploy at global scale. So just to give you a little anecdote, back in 2012, our CEO, Oren, declared that he had this milestone in mind that we would be able to deploy 1 kilometer a night. And people in the industry, in the road laying industry, in the technology industries, they laughed at him. And today, this is exactly what we do. So I hope that by 2025, we'll be able to deploy 10 kilometers a night with just 1 or 2 people. And I believe that this will enable us to reach every city, every fleet type, and offer a really compelling and cost-effective, and more importantly than that, sustainable approach to powering fleet electrification. So those are my hopes and dreams and aspirations.
Thank you, Charlie. Again, I would like to thank all of our panelists for sharing their views that allow us to take, let's say, a look at the future of fleet electrification. So I think a lot of interesting aspects were discussed today. And if I look at my notes, I think the words that pop up quite often is strategic cooperations and partnerships. So I think this is one of paramount importance for moving forward with fleet electrifications and bringing all the stakeholders at the same table, speaking the same language. Also smartness, we heard about smart services from Eric, also smart plugs from Fiona. So I think smartness and services and solutions offered to end customers are also of importance to achieve the goals of electrification. And again, I think we should not neglect standardization, because we're talking about stakeholders from different industries, from different companies that would like to let's say, integrate their systems in a seamless and transparent way. So let me thank you all and each one of you personally for this exciting conversation. And let me give now the floor to Petar to discuss the main takeaways from the session. Thank you all once more.
Hello, everyone. I am Petar Georgiev, the e-mobility lead at Euroelectric. What a conference. It was really useful to hear all those perspectives of so many policy and industry leaders over the last 2 days. Certainly, fleet electrification is on and nothing is stopping it down. Now, my task right now is to conclude our 2-day event, and it's a quite difficult task with so many great contributions, but I just wanted to bring out 3 main takeaways that I would keep, at least for myself, and quite for long after this event. The first point that I think we learned during the last 2 days, and it's quite important that we see this already, is that the EV success story, it's happening. There's nothing stopping it back. And we heard examples for a transition to electric that largely show that we start with the vehicles and then the infrastructure follows. We heard about Norway's pioneer approach, but the rest of Europe is also catching up. And in the course of 2020, there were about 10% of all new car sales that were electric. So this is just the beginning, and we see fleets to be the catalyst of the next big jump. The second point that I would take with myself is really the role of policy. And myself as a policy advisor, I really think that a lot can be done. But we heard about some very interesting approaches in different countries or also undertaken by different companies. I think that a lot can be done on taxation when it comes to national taxation on vehicles. A lot can be done to support infrastructure as well. Particularly on the vehicle side, we see that a movement towards an EU zero-emission vehicle mandate with the review of the CO2 standards can be something very useful to stimulate the demand and the production of new electric cars. We see also that on the infrastructure side, it would be very essential to remove unnecessary bureaucracy and red tape in order to facilitate the grid upgrades that are necessary, but also facilitate the right to plug, not just for individual citizens, but also for companies that operate at big depots. And I think one other point that comes within the policy realm is really the single market approach for EV charging, which is really looking here at the software side of things. And there's a lot of discussion on how to make everything seamless and interoperable. But ultimately, we should promote growth of European companies, and we should make sure that everything is open and subject to a good level of competition. My third point, and I think this is also quite evident from what we heard from our speakers, is that electrification unlocks the new mobility. We heard benefits coming from lots of different charging solutions in an energy system, which is also smart. So we talked about V2G in the last panel. We had also discussion on wireless charging, smart charging cables, and even getting paid to charge with flexible tariffs. Understanding the market and operational characteristics of fleets in this context is essential. And we've done that in our report that we published on the 2nd of February, together with our partners from Ernst & Young, in which we elaborated a roadmap to guide fleet owners and managers into a new electric era of mobility and mobility solutions. And that's our eVision. This is the toolkit that we really want to hammer and make sure that everything here is as crystal clear as it gets. And still, there's a lot that we can learn in this whole process. Sometimes we want to even scale up faster than what is feasible. But this is good. This is good. It's really great to have the ambition, and companies from all over Europe and even globally have taken good initiatives, from raising awareness to really assessing what the opportunity is and acting on it. And I'm proud to say that a lot of the companies at Euroelectric, a lot of our members have also taken measures to stimulate the electrification of their fleet and also to help other fleets electrify. So with this, to conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who made this event possible, our sponsors, our knowledge partners, our media partners, the audiovisual team, the whole Euroelectric membership that contributed in the process of the creation of our report, but also during the course of this two-day event. And of course, I wanted to thank everyone at our secretariat for making this possible. It wouldn't have been possible without the efforts of everyone that I just mentioned. So I really want this to go out there. And I wanted to conclude by saying thank you for joining eVision. Thank you for joining our eVision on fleets in particular. And stay safe out there. Thank you.